This is the AI Reader podcast. Go back to a 1960s world where the art you love, the art you've admired for years, could be created without a single human touch. A world where the sweat, the tears, the passion of the artist are replaced with a cold, unfeeling machine. A world where creativity is measured in wires and electricity, and the greatest artists of our time are reduced to mere operators of a soulless contraption. In this 1960s world, there is a new technology that is threatening to end the art world as we know it. It's a technology that could replace traditional instruments and the artistic process itself with something far more mechanical. It's a technology that could dehumanize the arts, turning the creation of beauty into nothing more than a series of plugs, wires, and buttons. This new technology is complicated, and traditional artists don't know how to use it. It can't fit into their existing skills, and they're at risk of being left behind. As this technology develops, former artists will be replaced with mere operators of a machine. And that's why I'm here today, to talk to you about how the invention of the Moog synthesizer was the day the music died. Welcome to the AI Reader podcast. I'm your host, Beatrice Wright, and today we're going to explore the implications of that new technology, the Moog synthesizer. We will look at the parallels with text-to-image today. Why don't you put your feet up and enjoy a nice cuppa? For context for future listeners, this podcast is being scripted May 9th, 2023, at about block 789,000 on the Bitcoin time chain. As we just mentioned, there has been a lot of fear around the rapid advancement of AI technology. However, this is not the first time that a new technology has been met with fear and skepticism. Let's take a look back at the development of synthesizers in the mid-1960s. Notice the music did not die that day. In fact, there is more variety and availability of music today than ever before. Robert Moog, an American engineer and inventor, developed the first modular synthesizer. Despite not being a musician himself, Moog was interested in the potential of electronic instruments for music making. Similarly, many of the programmers and engineers behind AI image generators are not necessarily artists themselves, but rather are focused on creating open-ended tools for creativity. Just as it was up to the musicians of the time to figure out how to use Moog's synthesizer, it is up to artists today to explore the possibilities of AI image generators. Whether it's traditional artists incorporating AI into their work or new forms of art emerging from the technology itself, the future of art is being shaped by the development of AI. The modular design of the Moog synthesizer allowed for a high degree of flexibility and customization. Artists could create unique configurations of oscillators, filters, amplifiers, envelope generators, and sequencers, and use control voltages to create complex and evolving sounds. The ability to modulate and manipulate different parts of the signal chain led to new sonic possibilities and inspired a generation of musicians. Similarly, text-to-image generators have a similarly configurable nature that allows for endless possibilities. The ability to adjust parameters such as color, style, texture, and composition means that the technology can be used to create a wide range of visual outputs. And just like with the Moog synthesizer, the way in which these parameters are used and combined is up to the artist's imagination. As AI image generators continue to evolve and become more sophisticated, we can expect to see new forms of art and creativity emerge that would have been impossible without this technology. Just as the Moog synthesizer revolutionized the world of music, AI image generators have the potential to revolutionize the world of visual art. Switched on Bach was a game-changing album that brought electronic music to a wider audience and showcased the versatility of the Moog synthesizer. Wendy Carlos, a musician and composer, spent countless hours programming and experimenting with the synthesizer to create the complex arrangements heard on the album. Similarly, we are already seeing the potential for AI image generators to be used in creative ways. From generating custom stock art, creating realistic landscapes, mixing different styles to create something new, the possibilities are endless. And just like with the Moog synthesizer, it will be up to artists to experiment and push the boundaries of what is possible with this technology. Indeed, Switched On Bach was a groundbreaking album that demonstrated the unique capabilities of the Moog synthesizer. Wendy Carlos, a musician and composer, used the instrument to arrange and perform Bach's music in a way that had never been heard before. The album was a commercial success and helped to establish the Moog synthesizer as a legitimate instrument for making music. It's worth noting that Switched On Bach was a remix of sorts, in that it was based on music from the public domain. Bach's compositions were over 200 years old at the time of the album's release and were not subject to copyright restrictions. In a way, this highlights the potential for new works of art to be created through the reuse and reinterpretation of existing works. AI image generators have the ability to create stunningly realistic images, but they can only do so because they've been trained on vast quantities of existing images. This process involves feeding the AI with massive amounts of data, which it then uses to learn how to create its own images. But what are the intellectual property implications of this process? To understand the IP implications of AI training on images, it's important to consider how artists have traditionally learned their craft. When I was learning to draw, for example, I would often look at existing perspective drawings, measure the lines, and learn to do the math. Similarly, painters have been known to sit in museums and paint copies of the paintings they see there. In other words, all artists learn the craft by looking at those that came before them. In this sense, AI image generation is simply a continuation of this process. The difference is that AI can do it more efficiently and on a much larger scale. But should there be a line drawn when it comes to using existing images for training AI? And if so, where should that line be drawn? These are complex questions, and there is no easy answer. On the one hand, the use of existing images for AI training is an important part of the process, as it allows the AI to learn from a diverse range of styles and techniques. On the other hand, there is a risk that AI-generated images could be too similar to existing works, raising questions of plagiarism and infringement. Similarly, AI image generators have the potential to remix and reimagine existing works of art in new and unexpected ways. This opens up a whole new world of creative possibilities and challenges us to rethink our ideas of authorship and originality. The Moog synthesizer quickly gained popularity among experimental musicians and was used on many groundbreaking recordings in the late 1960s and early 1970s. Some notable early adopters of the technology include the Beatles, Gentle Giant, and Kraftwerk, who used the Moog to create pioneering sounds that pushed the boundaries of what was possible in music. As the technology evolved, the Moog synthesizer became more mainstream and was eventually embraced by a wider range of artists. In the 1980s and 1990s, bands like Depeche Mode and Radiohead used the technology to create hit songs that helped to define the sound of the era. We may not yet know the names of the early adopters of text-to-image generators, but it's clear that this technology has the potential to revolutionize the world of visual art. Just as the Moog synthesizer helped to create new sounds and genres in music, AI image generation has the potential to create new forms of visual art that challenge our assumptions and expand our imaginations. In addition to its groundbreaking sound, the Moog synthesizer also featured greater usability than earlier electronic instruments. While Robert Moog is often credited with inventing the synthesizer, the history of the instrument is actually more complicated than that. Moog did, however, significantly increase the usability and popularity of the synthesizer. One of the key advancements that Moog made was to add a keyboard to the synthesizer. This allowed musicians to play the instrument like a traditional piano or organ, which made it much more accessible to musicians who were used to playing conventional instruments. The keyboard also allowed for greater control over the sound, as notes could be played at different volumes and with different effects. By adding a keyboard to the synthesizer, Moog helped to pave the way for its wider adoption in the music world. Today, synthesizers are used in a wide variety of musical genres, and they continue to push the boundaries of what is possible in music. Similarly, the text-to-image generators that are being developed today are designed to be more user-friendly and accessible than earlier iterations of the technology. As these tools continue to evolve and improve, we can expect to see more and more artists using them to create new forms of visual art that are unlike anything we've seen before. While some may view this technology as a mere gimmick or a tool for creating humorous absurdist memes, there is no denying its potential for serious artistic expression. The ability to generate images based on text opens up a world of creative possibilities, allowing artists to explore new concepts and ideas that may have been difficult to express through traditional mediums. It's interesting to note that just like with the Moog synthesizer, there have been some early uses of text-to-image technology that were less than impressive. In fact, some early attempts at using this technology to create visual art were downright embarrassing. In the early days of the Moog synthesizer, there were some albums released that were not very good, and that Moog himself was reportedly embarrassed by. Similarly, there have been some early uses of text-to-image technology that were crude, simplistic, or even offensive. As we continue to explore the potential of AI image generation, it's important to remember that this technology is not a replacement for human creativity, but rather a tool that can enhance and expand upon it. Whether it's through remixing existing works or creating entirely new ones, AI image generators are poised to transform the world of visual art in exciting and unexpected ways. Follow AI ReaderPod on Twitter and subscribe and like wherever you are listening. Until next time, keep calm and carry on.